The late shift. My dad wasn't one to believe in ghosts. He was never big on telling me fairy tale stories when I was younger either. He's a big, tough, macho guy, and he doesn't believe in anything unless he himself sees it. That all changed for him one evening at work. He worked the late shift at the old Reno prison. He said it was a really laid-back job. Mostly he just drove around in the security vehicle and checked out all the different areas to make sure that there was no one where they weren't supposed to be. My dad's boss was named Jack. One evening, Jack asked my dad if he would do some janitorial work, which was totally out of the norm and not something they normally asked the night guards to do. My dad wasn't one to argue, and he wasn't one to shy away from hard work, so he agreed. He was sent to go sweep the old chapel and to make sure that there was nobody in there that wasn't supposed to be. So my dad got in his truck and drove down to the chapel. He said that when he walked through the door, it was completely pitch black, and the hair on the back of his neck stood on end, and he just felt strange, and he had never felt like that before. Now again, my dad is not the type of guy that believes in tomfoolery. So, he didn't think much of it. Thought maybe there was just a chill in the air. He flipped on the lights and started to survey the room. After about a minute, a man who was wearing the exact same uniform as my dad stepped out of the office in the back. "Oh," my dad said, "are you here sweeping already?" The man smiled and waved. Yes, don't worry, I've got this covered." My dad was very confused. He didn't understand why Jack would have sent him all the way out here if somebody was already here doing the job. But, again, my dad wasn't one to argue or question things. So he just shrugged and said, "Okay, I'll let Jack know," and left. My dad got back in his truck and drove back over to the front office. It had been only about 15 minutes since Jack had sent him down to the chapel. "What in the heck are you doing back already?" Jack asked him. "There's no way that you swept that whole place and looked around that quickly." My dad looked at him, confused. "Another guard's already in there. He said he'd check." And I guess Jack didn't think anything of it, as long as the chapel was checked out and everything was fine and it was swept. This is where it gets a little creepy. About 3 days later, my dad said he was walking down the halls of the prison and stopped to look at the display case of all the old photos of other guards in the past. As he was browsing the photos, he said his heart sank and his blood froze. One of the pictures he came across was the very same guard that he had encountered in the chapel. Only the guard was dead. Apparently, about 4 years before my dad started working there, a riot had broken out in the chapel, and a guard was stabbed to death. That guard was the man that my dad saw. But out of the 12 years of working there, not once had he ever heard about the riot until that very moment. I don't know if they don't talk about it, if it scares them, if they're afraid that it'll run someone out of a job or what. But my dad is now a firm believer in the paranormal.